Right, welcome back. You're watching The Front Row with me, Akisa Wandera, MP in Daragwa and Chairperson of Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee. Jeremiah Kioni is with us here, but remember we also have Martin Olo, who is a lawyer and a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. When we spoke on phone, you said something that I think I should bring you back on, that if JLAC is not careful, then they would have wasted all the 24 days that this bill has been in Parliament. Why do you say that? Because
we have a constitution amendment bill before us through the popular initiative, not an amendment that has been introduced by members of parliament or through a parliamentary process. And in my understanding, when and I think this is best understood if I give a little bit of where we came from.
Right.
Under the 1963 Constitution, a number of amendments were introduced by the political elite without any reference to the public. In fact, Kenyans only came to realize that their constitution had been amended because they were required to do things differently. And that informed the requirement of public participation in any of the lawmaking processes that parliaments will need to undertake post-2010 in our constitution. And I think because of the fear of what was done between 1963 and 2010, the requirement for public participation was thrown into the picture. Right. And we must admit that without it wasn't well refined when it was introduced in the Constitution. So we have had to, at times, to refer to the courts to try and define what is public participation. Now, my interpretation on this particular aspect is, popular initiative was introduced in our Constitution so that the political elite, in the event that they refuse to amend the law to serve Kenyans, the populace can do it, can exercise their sovereignty, their sovereign power, their sovereign directly by proposing amendment to the Constitution. If they choose that route, then again, I think it will be ill-placed for the political elite to give themselves the law of trying to improve what the populace want amended.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying that is why Parliament was just given a facilitative role. In fact, somebody used the word that, and people thought it was not a good word to use, but it is a conveyor belt. For this particular process, Parliament is just a conveyor belt. It comes to us, we discuss it, we give our views. Our views really can only influence the voting process, but not the content of the bill. And after we've given our views, then the bill goes to the president. The president will then send it to the people through IBC for them to finally vote on the document as it was given to us by the county assembly. So I think we'll continue having a lot of arguments on this issue for as long as we fail to understand how did we end up with this animal called public participation in our constitution.
Right.
That is really giving us a lot of problem because it is also being interpreted differently by different courts.
Yes.
So and this is why I'm saying in this particular case, JLAC needs to understand what, in my opinion, they needed to do. It was only that we needed a committee of parliament to introduce the bill on the floor. We may not even need to bother with the report, but it's good to have a report because it forms part of the history and part of what we may want to look at going forward. But even without the report, and this is the ruling the Speaker made, said, come the 1st of April,
yes,
next week, we would want to see the Constitution Amendment Bill 2020 on the order paper. Once it's on the order paper, it means it will be there for us to debate it.
Whether the report is ready or
without
yes,
the report. So now it's upon JLAC to do the decent thing, to ensure that there is a report that can guide the people or the members of parliament as we debate.
JLAC has asked for an extension. They've asked for formation of a subcommittee to engage experts in what the chairperson said are weighty issues that were raised during the public participation process. How necessary do you think this will be, and how effective in this process?
You remember, the constitution that we have today is a product of the committee of experts, among other many groupings that made some very, very useful contributions. And I want to say this. There is no one group that will come and agree on how to amend the constitution. A proposal must be put on the table so that it can then go to the people to decide on it, either reject it or pass it. Because if you continue having groups of experts, and we are not, we have very many experts. We have experts, last time we had experts from Uganda, other from Zambia, then today I had somebody talking about from the Democratic Republic of Congo or somewhere, and they will continue being there. And experts will be as many as the lawyers in any room. JLAC needs to understand that they are not going to have a consensus on all those issues. In any case, I think we need to understand this. We also have a group of people who have been opposed to this process, have been issued from the beginning. And they will take every opportunity that comes their way to try and delay the process. And that is why you had some people saying there is no emergency of BBI. True, there may not be any emergency, but there is urgency on it. We need to finish that which we started and also what we promised Kenya. So I want to say that the issue of picking another committee of experts is a thing we should never again go back to. We dealt with it, we are done with, and this is the Kenyans exercising their sovereign power. And when they come to that, they can do it in their own way without even this committee of experts who will come and confuse the process. And we may never get to move, like we never moved for 20 years since 1992.
Do you think politics is being sneaked into Parliament in this conversation?
Big time, big time. Politics, it's being sneaked in, and today was another golden opportunity for people. It didn't quite mature into that, but it was, again, we could see how it will be when we come to debating it on the floor. However, when the debate starts, it is your views on the amendments.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the callers. So it is you and what do you think of the amendments that are before us, and I believe, what do you think about this process? That, again, will find its place in the Hansard, but it will not stop the conveyor, the belt from moving. And we are just part of that conveyor belt, unfortunately.
Before I go to Martin Olo, JLAC is talking about recalling the Hansard and going back to the committee of experts and what they said about what the role of Parliament should be. Why do you think they need to do that at this point?
I want to say again, like I've said, I think JLAC is overstepping it. The process that they seem to be engaged in is a parliamentary process where we would have engaged in public participation, we would have amended perhaps our own initiative. But this is an initiative by people outside Parliament. And as we are only being asked to help it move to the president so that he can deal with it, pass it back to the people, for people to eventually say, this is the way we want the law to be, and from that point, go and implement it.
Right.
Then we can deal with the amendment of the same, again through the parliamentary initiative, if we think we should.
Yes,
and if we
what
get
we've had some MPs term as conveyor belts. Martin Olo, to bring you in at this point, what political scenarios are you seeing playing out right now with this bill at a stage where parliamentarians will now have to debate it, but not necessarily amend it at the end of the day?
I think that this train, as I've said, left the parliamentarians a long time ago. The moment this process was generated as a popular initiative, Parliament should have realized that it was meant to be sidestepped. So the politics around this are just what they are. And Mheshimiwa Kioni there is best placed to tell you what the politics are. But certainly, there are those who are opposed to this process right from the beginning. They are still opposed to it. There are those who think that this whole process is supposed to dilute power going into the future, and yet they wanted power in its absolute terms. They are opposed to it. But those who want to disperse power, those who want to see a shared, inclusive executive, I'm not sure that I agree with everything, including the number of parliamentary seats. I don't know. I don't. But generally, there are those who want to see more, but there are those who don't want to see more. So what I'm saying is that we have a situation where, unfortunately for members of Parliament, for this one, they can only allow it to pass. Does it mean that they do not have any other role? No, they do. But when they are seized of it themselves, whenever they come to a point where they say they want to take the advantage of their own institution to then amend the constitution, they are free to revisit some of these issues. For now, this is an initiative that is overwhelming for them. The waters that are pushing this initiative are so heavy, they cannot afford to stand in its way. It will sweep them off.
What heavy waters are this? Expound that for our audience.
Certainly, you have a situation where both the president and his handshake partner, Raila, have put their force and their political stakes on this process, which process has now gone to the people and the county assemblies. Contrary to what some people believe, that some of them will reject it, only a few rejected it, but in majority of the county assemblies passed this. So that passage, that push from the president and Raila, and the fact that this is a legacy project, is such a heavy machinery here that all we can expect is to see it go to the people, and the people can decide to agree with them or otherwise. But most likely, we are seeing a situation where the majority will agree. But of course, there are those who will oppose it, and that is their right. So they could oppose it, but certainly the political forces around this are so solid, and they are pushing for it.
Let me add something.
Yes.
To what my lecturer has said. Parliament has been around for about now almost 10 years since we passed the 2010 Constitution. And there exists an opportunity in every of the parliamentary sittings for Parliament to introduce amendments to the Constitution, because that is also provided for under the Constitution. But this, we as members of Parliament have not been able to exercise that right. We have not, we have identified gaps in the Constitution, but every time perhaps attempts have been made, and we did make attempts ourselves as a committee,
right.
Every time those attempts have been made, I think Parliament has been lethargic. It's now our time to wake up and do as is expected of us. We can always amend the Constitution. There is a procedure for doing that. We have to go then for public participation. And what we are trying to do in this popular initiative, we can only be able to do it through a parliamentary initiative. And I challenge myself, among others, that is something that we need to do, and future parliaments must always play that role. And I see even members of Parliament and even sometimes the leadership of Parliament wondering what is the role of CIOC. Yes. Those of us who were there during 10th Parliament, we clearly understood what CIOC was supposed to do, and their role going forward. And Parliament will find it very difficult to deal with these issues if they continue perhaps not allowing some of these committees to play out or to carry out their mandate as is provided for, right. In this case, in the Constitution.
All right, and as you're watching and commenting on this, I'll be taking a look at some of your thoughts. I'm already seeing a lot of tweets and text messages. We'll be looking at that when we get back from the break, and also what are some of the emerging issues that came up of the public participation process in Parliament, and how are they likely to pan out in this process. This is the front row. The hashtag to use on Twitter and all the other platforms is front row at Akisa Wandera at KTN News KE. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more.
This is KTN News.